Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
It's great to be here as a part of an ongoing relationship that Roger Gehring and I have, and I know that this group gets up at this hour of the morning every morning, and I just want you to know I really appreciate you for doing that. But I probably ought to ask, how many of you have at least had your first cup of coffee? Okay, good. All right, that's very good. I'm glad to hear that. I happen to say that only because I'm a person who people have teased me for years because I only get about 4 hours of sleep a night, and I've never drank coffee in my life. And I don't know how it works. I really don't. I can't give you any reasoning or understanding around that at all, but that's just the case. The one thing I noticed that Roger and Jeff wanted to make sure you didn't know is that I'm also associate pastor of a church in town. They were probably fearful that you might be worried about how long I might talk this morning, so they figured they better not tell you something like that. I'm delighted to have this chance to be with. Is my walking okay? Okay. I'm delighted because I am a walker. I really am. I'm delighted to have this chance to be with you today, but you'll really not trust that statement when you realize that I ended the night last night at the Urban League dinner where I was the MC for the Urban League dinner, and we got out at about, well, the dinner was over around 10 o'clock, but I didn't get to leave until about 11:30 or quarter of 12. You'll also not try, so you know where I'd really rather be is asleep right now. But I might also add that that you might also not trust that statement because tomorrow morning I'll be getting on the plane heading to London. And anybody would want to go to London, but we all know that the weather there is about like the weather here anyway. I want to talk this morning and about leadership, and particularly about leadership in changing times. As we think about the world that we live in and we think about the challenges that we have, and you know, even my company, which is a financial risk management company, we're a service organization. We're a technology organization, and we're always looking to try to find solutions for banks and financial institutions. That's really what we do on a daily basis, and it's one of those things that our company has done for the last 12 years, as a matter of fact, as we do business in the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom. As we do that business, we know, and many of you, by the way, I think, really saw some things change in the year 2001, end of 2001, all of 2002. Now, just by show of hands, I don't expect to get you to say a lot this morning, but did anybody have impacts in the last year and a half that have been really difficult? Okay, you know, it's important to know you're not by yourself. You know what I mean? It's really good to know that. And so we as a company certainly found ourselves in the throes of a very difficult time, as many leasing companies in particular that we worked with ended up closing their doors, going directions, or consolidating. All of those things were going on. What we do is a financial verification. One of the things that it caused me to think about, and one of the things that I talk about a lot these days, is the importance of leadership and the importance of us realizing that in an economy where a number of people have lost their jobs, in an economy where a number of businesses have consolidated with others, in an economy where equity capital has been very difficult to acquire, and in an economy where it's been clear that consumer confidence has been a lot less than it had been before, that it really requires us as heads of organizations, as leaders of divisions, and people who just care about your organization, causes us to do some rethinking. Let me talk to you a little bit about what I think leadership is. And you can argue with me if you want, but you don't get the opportunity because there's not enough time to argue this morning. One of the things I think leadership is not about your title. I've never believed that leadership is about a title, because my belief in leadership is about the fact that leaders are people who are able to, on the one hand, find the future, and secondly, lead a group of people to go in a direction that they might not ordinarily go on their own. And I think that there are two kinds of leaders. There is a person who is a leader by position, and there is a person who is a leader by his or her personality. My belief has always been that the leader you really want to be is the leader who has people power versus position power. Because the person who is leading by position power, generally speaking, has power as a result of him or her being in that position. But the person who leads by person power has the ability to be in that position, and it really doesn't matter what job he or she has, people will follow them because they believe in them. And you and I both know that the leader who really is doing his or her job well, a group of people will end up following them, not always because they're right, but they will follow them because they believe in them. And that when they are no longer in that position, called whatever, people will still have a great deal of faith in who they are as human beings. Now, I've been told, and you've heard it too, that there are three kinds of people in the world, and I want to bring that into leadership as well. Those who make things happen, those who watch things happen, and those who wonder what happened. I'm a believer that real leaders are about making things happen and recognizing the importance of making things happen from a standpoint of always looking at what is best for the greater good. Best for the greater good, and in changing times recognizing that even in difficult moments, what the leader must do are things that people will absolutely appreciate, because he or she is going to make sacrifices that are sacrifices on the same level that they're expecting other people to make. In our company this last year, I asked my two partners to do something, and the three of us did something that really shocked our organization. But we did it because I believe that's exactly what we needed to do in these changing times. And we took a 50% pay cut ourselves. I'll say it again because you're looking at me. Some of you are looking at me like I've got three heads. No, we did. In this crazy economy, we took a 50% pay cut. Now, I want to be very clear. Some of you might think we were overpaid in the first place. I want to be very clear about the fact that we were not. I also want to be very clear about the fact that somehow when we went to the grocery store, they did not say, since you're taking a pay cut, we will charge you 50% less on your grocery bill or your mortgage payment or any of those kind of things. But I definitely believed that we needed to be able to say, before we said anything about pay freezes for anybody else, we needed to make sure that we let the group know what we were willing to do ourselves. At the same time we did that, we also did that because we wanted to preserve as many jobs in the organization as we could preserve. I think changing times cause leaders to have to do things that's very important, that they show and set an example that is really important for the organization. Lee Iacocca, one of my favorite contemporary philosophers, said something once. He said, either lead, follow, or get the heck out of the way. And I believe that in changing times, it's really critical that one make a choice as to what they want to do. My belief is that there are leaders and there also are followers, and it's important that we do that. Let me talk to you about three subsets of leadership, in my opinion, and that is what leaders must be, what leaders must do, and what leaders must advocate for. And there are 7 quick points under each one of these, 7 quick points. I think that leaders must be people of integrity. I think in order to get people, and these are in no order of importance, but certainly in terms of top to bottom. And there are many more, but I'm just talking about these as some critical areas of thinking for us today. Leaders must lead with integrity, meaning that people must believe in you. And they must see you as a person that they can trust. They can see you as a person who is a person who truly sets an example, and a person, quite frankly, that other people really want to be. And that leader has an ability to mentor people from afar as a result of the example that he or she sets. Secondly, I think the leader must be consistent. If there's anything that bothers a group of people, is to see inconsistency in leadership style and in the way people are treated in organizations and determinations made. They must be fair. Thirdly, I think one of the key things that must happen, even in my days in government, I used to say this as a matter of fact, that government must be fair. We must recognize that the board of directors of our city or our state or our county are the voters. Those are the people, the citizens, they're the people that really make the difference. But we must do things in a fair and equitable way. Fourthly, I think leaders must be uplifting and positive and inspiring. These are all on the same line, by the way. This is one way to get 7 points, but make sure you have a few other things you want to throw in. They must be, I said, uplifting, positive, and inspiring. One of the things that Our governor, Kulingoski, said to me recently, he happened, we've gone through some really tough times at the state, if you think about it. He said he was talking to the governor of Iowa when they were all in Washington, D.C. one day, and he said to the governor, he said, listen, he said, during times like these, it's really tough. He said, I'm going to tell you something, the governor of Iowa said to our governor. He said, I took over as governor of Iowa when we had some great things going on. He said, and it was wonderful and all that. He said, we hit a bad spot, and I kept going. And he said, by the way, when things were going well, my popularity was as high as all get out. He said, as the moment things hit hard, and I went around the state telling everybody about how bad things were, my popularity plummeted. Nobody wanted to hear about how bad things were. They wanted to hear what kind of hope there might be. One leader that I talk about often, by the way, when I talk about leadership, is a person like Ronald Reagan, who I don't care whether you liked or disliked him from a standpoint of policy, he knew how to lead because he always left you with some feeling of hope that no matter how dark the days are now, things were going to get better. As a group of people, as Americans, as great as Jimmy Carter has an ex-presidency, we were bothered by his presidency because he made a sacrifice. And we didn't want to sacrifice. We didn't want to turn down our temperature and wear sweaters in our house and stuff like that. Come on, some of you are at least old enough to remember his presidency. Fifth, I think a leader must be a good coach and recognize that in the world that we live and in the changing times that we're in, one of the things that we need are leaders who are able to coach by the side of people and help them become their best selves. I think that one of the wonderful things about coaching, and somebody told me this the other day, is if we think about it, as a coach, we're trying to get everybody to be the best they can be. That's really what our job is. A football coach knows if he's got 48 people on the bench, right, from top to bottom, even number 48, if he has to ask that person to come in and play, that person has got just as much stuff as the person who's number one. Our job as coaches means that we want to make sure everybody has the opportunity to play, everybody has the opportunity to fail, and everybody has the opportunity to get better. This is one of my favorite because I believe in this so much as leadership, and that is that a leader must be selfless. The selfish leader is, to me, the failed leader. An organizational dynamic with a selfish leader, a person who's more concerned about him or herself than they are the people that they work with, is a person, in my opinion, who will have trouble leading their organization. Because along with being selfless, one must be a servant. And I think that one of the real titles that every one of us has as leaders is the ability to serve and recognize that that is our job, to serve the people that we're around. Finally, in terms of what I think leaders ought to be, is that they ought to have a sense of humor. They ought to have a sense of humor and an ability to uplift people and to give them that sense of hope. Here's some of the things I think leaders must do. I think it's very important that leaders recognize that they must provide vision and direction and focus for their organization. I've always loved another contemporary philosopher, David Letterman, who says, if you really don't, you've heard of David Letterman, of course, right? If you really want to work on the issue of focus, it's a very important thing to do. That if you don't, what David Letterman says, you're just basically hopelessly lost but making great time. And I think that in our changing times, it requires us to really focus on what is our core business, what is our core mission, what are the core things that we must do, and focus on the very important few versus the absolute many. Next, I think that once you've provided that focus and that direction, you must appropriate resources to really focus on making sure that you can be successful in those various areas. Third, I think you must listen and act on what you're told. One of the great things about, I think, leadership is the ability to recognize that you don't have all the answers. Excuse me, I know that there's so many of you who do. Let me just say that I know that I'm one who doesn't. And the older I get, the more I love to be able to say, you know what, I don't know what the answer is. Because I think what happens to us, the moment we get in some sort of management position, we automatically assume, oh, by gosh, I've got to have all the answers for everybody. Well, guess what? You don't know them all. And the other thing is you're going to find yourself flummoxed up all the time. Because The important thing of our jobs as leaders is to recognize and listen to what people have to say. But again, why this is important with consistency is that you must not only listen, but it's important that you act and do something. Otherwise, your organization's paying attention to you all the time. I don't care whether you have 3 people or 5,000 people. If their input doesn't usually mean anything, they will quit doing what? They will quit inputting into the process. That's all there is to it. I did talk about the fourth one is focus in terms of what the leader must do. The fifth one is forgive and understand the importance of forgiveness, because guess what? I know that every one of you in here is perfect. I recognize that. But there's at least one imperfect being in here, and every now and then they may make a mistake. And if they do, it's really important. If you've never done this before, start doing it now, and that's forgive them, because you know you just may slip up after all these years and make a mistake, and you'll want somebody to do that for you. But I think that one of the things that's very important is an organization that understands that a mistake is not the worst thing that can happen. There was a story that was told by the person who heads FedEx, where a person, I won't even go into all the details of the story. All I can tell you is they ended up spending $1 million of FedEx's money. And lots of people thought it was one of the worst mistakes that was ever made. And the person who made the mistake, the $1 million mistake, can you imagine making $1 million mistake? Come on, somebody in here.
We had somebody make a $10 million
there you go.
And they got promoted.
There you go. That's exactly what happens. So this person went into the office of his or her boss, and they absolutely knew they were going to be fired. And their boss said to them, dressed them down, told them all the things that they had done wrong, and they better not do it again. And finally, before they left, they said, wait a minute, does that mean I still have a job, or does that mean I'm fired? He said, fired? He said, we just made $1 million investment in you. How could we possibly fire you? We must create safety. Next, number 6 in the organization. Safety for an environment that says we are caring, we are able to make mistakes, we are able to give, to share, to input, to be critical, to do whatever is necessary. When I say critical, I mean constructively so that in that organization it's clear that there is a synergy and there is an acceptance of the fact that we want to make this place better. Finally, we want to build a bench and make sure that there are really clearly some strong people behind you. I don't know about you, but one of the things I think that's important as a leader is to hire people that are smarter than you are. Come on now, somebody, right? Smarter than you are, and don't be absolutely intimidated by it, because one of the best things in the world you can do is to have that going on in your organization, because you're going to make it stronger and better at all times. The last category is what you advocate for. I said, number 1, you must find the future. I said, number 2, you must create fun. Number 3, it's important that you create and advocate a learning environment, to have people learning and growing and developing at all times. I think one of the best things that I've enjoyed, whether it was my time at Nike or my time at Quiktrak or my time in government, is to look at the people that some people wrote off and said there was no way they were going to be any better. There was no way they were going to ever get promoted, and to really spend the time and give them confidence and work with them and find the stuff that really motivates them and see people grow to a place that nobody thought they had the potential of being. There is nothing better as a leader than being able to see that kind of stuff happen. I think it's important that leaders advocate for a nimbleness in the organization. A nimbleness meaning that it doesn't take us forever to make a decision. It doesn't take us forever to turn things around. That we should literally think of ourselves as rowboats, not battleships. Because quite frankly, if it takes us that long to get something done, particularly in business, we know full well that the competition will have figured it out by the time we're still doing all kind of other crazy things. Somebody may want to argue with me about that. Next, I would say we must always promote new ideas and process improvement, always. I told you that mistakes are welcomed, and finally I say we must work on things like efficiency and effectiveness. The final thing I will say about leaders and leadership in these changing times is the importance of us having the courage of doing the things that we're called to do. Now let me help you understand what I mean by that. There are great jobs out there. There are great avocations. There are great vocations. There are great occupations. The real question is, what is it that you have been called to do? What is it that really gets you going? You see, what I look to people to do is remember that in these changing times, don't always go after the first thing that somebody gives you. Go after the thing that truly gives you the fire in the belly, that makes you want to get up in the morning, that causes you to feel like you're literally making a difference and that you can literally climb the mountain. I have believed for a long time that what happens to us is that we get ourselves in this sort of position that we're willing to take anything because we need. And I say take because you are called to do it. And there are times that you need to listen to what's going on in your own heart, your own mind, your own soul, and say, is this really what I'm called to do, or am I doing this because everybody just wants me to do it? Recently, what happened to me is I said to the mayor, because I'd been on the Portland Development Commission for a while, and the mayor had wondered whether or not I wanted to be chair. And quite frankly, I had enough to do. I did not want to be chair. But I don't know about you. God has an amazing way of reminding us it's not about my plan, it's really about His. And the interesting thing was, on the way to Bible study, to teach Bible study, I can't tell you I heard the voice of God, because it wasn't the voice of God I heard, but I heard something that said, so here was your opportunity to quit complaining about how somebody else is leading. to quit worrying about how the direction we're going, and I'm giving you the chance, and you basically told me no. And so I went to my Bible study, and I did not tell them specifically what it was about, but I told them about the importance of being able to listen to what your calling is, and to recognize that that calling has to be and that you must meet it. And I called the mayor the next day and told her I was more than happy to be the chairman of the Portland Development Commission. Now, anytime any reporter has asked me since then, one asked me last night, how much longer will you be the chair of the Portland Development Commission? I will say 6 months, 5 days, and 4 hours. Because it's been one of the hardest jobs I've ever taken, but I've done what I was called to do. Let me just wrap it up by this, to say to you, first of all, number one, a joy to be here. Secondly, a blessing to have the chance to really lead in times like these, to recognize the importance of the fact that as human beings we will make mistakes from time to time, but quite frankly, the mistake is not the worst thing in the world. But to create organizations and to create opportunities for people to have a chance to really give to something that's really bigger than themselves, and to recognize the opportunities to really make tomorrow better than today was, or to make certain that the generations that come after us will say they did try to do some things right. Not everything, but they did try to do some things right, is really important. That's where I lay my hat, and that's the sort of challenge that I give to you. Thank you very much.
So, how do you get over the risk avoidance factor that seems to be prevalent?
First of all, I think it's a great question, and let me just say a couple things. First, I think that organizations that don't have focus, unfortunately, literally flounder. I've been a believer that every year there ought to be a business plan, and there ought to be a theme that you're trying to rally around, because that's what creates the sort of inspiration and focus necessary. And there are always risks. I don't care, even in good times, there's still risks that people have to take, right? And that people are going to be faced with. And I think all I would do is say that if an organization really wants to keep moving forward, there is a certain amount of measured risk that you must be willing to take. And again, any organization knows what they have the potential to do, whether it's from the resources that they have, whether it's the people they have, whether it's the statement they're trying to make for Wall Street, whatever it might be. You already know what the level of risk you have is. And all I would say is, operating within that, I would suggest the importance of remembering that a focus that says, basically, if this is what our core stuff is, let's remember to give it, at anything that happens in this year, the acid test. In other words, if economic development and education, just as two examples, if that's really what your focus is for the year, if anything sails in that doesn't deal with economic development and education, you really ought to ask yourself a question, is this really something I should do? because those filters are extremely important, which is the reason why you want to have focus, you want to have business plans, you want to have themes, because I believe if you have them and if you really focus on them, you'll end up getting where you want to get at the end of the day. You really will. Yes, sir. And then Roger.
2 questions.
Please. You're only allowed one. I'm sorry. No, I'm just teasing. Go right ahead.
No, they're very different. So
it's okay.
First one is in the tough times or changing times, what are some techniques or things you do to create the fun, right? The second one is as you're trying to be the leader and you're setting the vision in that, how do you, and you're saying, hey, we're all going to go this direction, whatever, and then God comes in and says, hey, I think it's time to make a left or right turn. How do you reconcile that with consistency in the vision and that?
Those are 2 different questions you're saying?
Yeah.
Is that the last one? So let me deal with the last one and then the first one, right? Did you hear the questions, by the way? I'm going to deal with the last one first, and that is, you've got a plan, you're going in this direction, and then God sails in, as he will most likely do, and things will be a little bit different, or he wants you to shift directions and stuff like that. One of the things I think that is really important is one of the things I talked about in terms of integrity, and that's truth. And that is that if it's time, if somehow you have found that you need to change direction or something needs to change in your organization, guess what? I'm a real big believer in telling everybody the truth. Because if you don't, what you create is an organization that, again, is suspect of where it is that you're going. There are a few things that we do around our joint, by the way, which will also get a little bit into your first question, and then I'll answer it wholly. We're blessed because we've got 95 people that work for us full-time here in the headquarters office. We've got 1,200 people that work for us independently out in the field. One of the things that we do is that we have what are called stand-up meetings. We'll just pull everybody in the conference room and we'll talk to them about what's going on. Now, we're a privately held company, but guess what? I share with them the financial statements now. I make sure that they know absolutely everything from top to bottom, okay? I make sure that they understand that we were going in this direction, but because of these various factors, we are now going in a different direction, and give them the opportunity to say something. But I also want them to recognize that we do have a responsibility to respond to what we feel, whether it's our board of directors, the people that we're looking to in terms of raising capital and stuff like that. And what I have found is that people react very wonderfully if you just tell them. I mean, I think what's been funny about some of our sort of management and leadership styles over the years is that we feel like we have to keep so much from people. In fact, by the way, I've made those mistakes before too. I don't want you to have the responsibility of knowing all this stuff, but the fact is, if they believe in you, they will know that you somehow will take care of all these things. But them knowing means that they will make better decisions in their daily lives at your job. They will be careful. And what I've also found is that it elicits the opportunity for them to tell you what we need to do, stop doing to save money. I start cracking up at our folks, by the way, when we said we were going to go on this austerity plan. And they told us about, you don't need to provide bread and butter and jelly and coffee and, well, coffee, yes, but bread and butter and all that stuff. You don't have to do that anymore. You don't have to do these kinds of things that we were doing for them, which I thought was very interesting. They were saying, pull those things back. The other side of it, which gets back to your first question, which is how do you still create the fun? And that is, I think it's important to celebrate the good things that happen. Even in bad times, good things happen every now and then. Come on, somebody. Every now and then there's something great that goes on. And I think it's important to really rally everybody around and make a big celebration out of it. And sometimes what that is, and we still do this, we did this just the other day. In fact, I said to folks, with our people having, experience for the last year and a half, pay freezes, I don't want us to have too many potlucks because it means that they've got to dig in their pocket to make food and bring it in. Why don't we do it for them? Okay? And so the fact is what we do is that kind of stuff. So there'll be a potluck every now and then, a pizza kind of party for everybody at lunch. You don't have to bring in your own stuff. We'll do it together. We'll talk a little bit of business and then we'll have a little bit of fun in terms of this. The same is true in terms of whether it's holiday celebrations and stuff like that. Those are things that's important to do. The other quick thing I'll say is we allow email chats in our place. And by the way, I've got a bunch of theater people that work for me, okay? And so what'll happen is somebody, will send out a note and say, I don't know, it can be one of the craziest things, Roger Gehring, broke his leg today. Let's all think about Roger. And then the next thing you'll see is a bunch of people saying, by the way, I broke my arm and nobody said anything about me, or it'll just, and literally it'll roll on. And so providing that kind of opportunity, and at one point people were worried when this first started that I was going to come on to email and say, okay, folks, cut it out. Well, from my perspective, as long as they're really dealing with the customer right, as long as they're providing the service we're supposed to provide, and as long as at the end of the day they get their work done, guess what? I really don't care. Because I really want them to be able to have that opportunity, to have the release and the fun, and it has never gone overboard. And that to me is what's been absolutely amazing about it. And so creating that sort of trust in your organization and creating the opportunity for people to have fun and to let them provide the opportunity to call a meeting, if you will, that's usually called by management, has also been among the things that we've done in these kind of changing times to create some of the fun environment that we want in the organization. What's been weird to me is 5 years ago when I asked the people, what's the culture of this place, nobody could tell me. Today they really can. And we have people that sit out in our lobby waiting for whoever they're waiting to see. And the response is the same. I hear this, you got a bunch of young people, I don't know what they do, but they seem to really enjoy what they do, they have fun. And by the way, they ask me, is there anything they can do for me? Now they're just sitting there waiting, but they'll be offered coffee, they'll be offered something to drink or something by everybody who passes, by the way. And they're even offered hugs because we're kind of a hugging organization as well. So you just never know what's going to happen around our place. Anything else? Roger, you wanted a question, yes. And then
how important is the spiritual in being a good leader?
I think the spiritual is very important. To me, it's really about centering you. I think in every one of our lives, we recognize when I said something about not always having the answers, and certainly what we all recognize is that particularly in difficult times, everybody's looking to you, both for the answers and also they're looking to you for hope. And you don't always have it. I mean, that's true, isn't it? Every now and then, you really are kind of depleted and sort of out of it. And I don't know about you, but for me, the spiritual aspect of me is I go there to recharge my batteries and to really create and look for the opportunity to find what's within so that I can give yet something more to the people that are around me. Listen, my walk with Christ started when I was 9 years old, and I'm a little bit more than 9 right now, as you probably can tell. But for 30-some years of my life, I've really relied on that relationship, and that relationship has only gotten stronger. Now, do I go in the workplace and talk about God every day and all that kind of stuff? No. But what I do go in the workplace is to try to make sure that I'm emulating the spirit that should be within me at all times. And that's really fun, and it's fun to be able to do that, and it's easy to do it because it just is kind of a part of the way I am. Now listen, folks, the way I am this morning is exactly the way I am at work, exactly the way I am in the pulpit, exactly the way I am anywhere I am. So there is no such thing, in my opinion, as putting on one face for work and one face for home and one face for whatever. I don't have time for all that crap. I've got to just be, just one person, the same person wherever I am. That's all there is to it. And I do believe the spiritual guidance is the sort of leveler that literally creates that centering, that no matter what's going on in my life, that's where I look to really create the sort of foundation that I need on which to stand. Yes, sir.
Matt, could you speak a little bit about your leadership and your spiritual as well as practical leadership at PDC?
Why'd you have to? I think we're out of time now. I can just tell we're. The PDC has been an interesting part of my life. It really has been, and I'm sure that there were people who were probably a little bit concerned when they got a minister as the chair of the PDC. But here's how it plays out. I mean, on the one hand, I really think that whether I'm leading the PDC or I'm leading, my own organization or the church or wherever I might be, that there are still some transferable skills that relate to all of it. Number one, I really want, and I've heard bad things about the PDC and what we do, and I've heard great things about it. And I think one of the things I've enjoyed the most is the ability to just say, one, let's remember that we want to open up and hear what people really have to say about us. Because I've had one motto. At my own place, it's the same. If you ask any of our employees, they'll tell you I say this a lot. And that is, you can only manage what you know. That's all. I mean, if you don't know anything about it, how can you expect to do anything about it? And so we have already put in place something that we had never had in place before, and that's a group that's going around the community and the region to find out what our report card is, which I think is really important. The important thing I've said to the organization is when we find out what our report card is, we're going to take it and we're going to work on the things that we really need to work on and keep on doing the good things that we do. One of the things I think the PDC does, forgive me for this, but it's the truth. I think sometimes as an organization, the city organization, all we think about is the city of Portland. To me, it's the region. It really is, because I think if something great happens in Hillsborough and a company lands there, I think that's grand. You know why? Because Portland's still going to be a winner. It really is, and we shouldn't think about this as sort of Portland versus the rest of the region. I think it's really about all of us, and I really bring a lot of that kind of conversation to the table because I sense sometimes that there are too many borders around the city, and we don't really transfer those borders very much. I'd say the other thing that I think is funny is Janice Wilson and I came on the PDC at the same time, and they asked us to go to a PDC meeting before we were confirmed by the city council. She and I didn't know each other at the time and knew nothing. We had mutual friends and the whole bit, but we both went to the same budget meeting. We both went at different times, so we never saw each other. But when we got to talk to one another at the end of the day, we both said the same thing. Boy, that was no dang fun. You know, I mean, gosh, it was the most colossal bore I've ever seen in my life. I've got to tell you, I'm sitting there thinking that I'd rather have a root canal than sit through one of their meetings. And all I can tell you, as I said right from the start, we're going to have a little bit more fun than this. This is crazy. And Janice felt the same way. And the two of us have really sort of helped the people feel, sort of open up a little bit and just kind of be human. You don't have to sit there like you're goddamn stone walls or something. I mean, it's just kind of crazy. Anyways, you think about that. I think about all those from a spiritual perspective, which basically says the one thing I love about my relationship with God is I still think that it allows me to have fun and have that in a very clean and wonderful way, and to be able to enjoy myself, and hopefully others enjoy the experience as well. I probably went longer than I should have, Roger. Is that right? Thank you all very much. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Roger. Appreciate it.